So have you ever been told that you're easy to work with, but somehow you feel like you're not being taken as seriously as you should be? So people like you and appreciate you and they trust you emotionally, but when there are decisions to be made, they don't maybe look to you. Or when the team or the organization needs direction, they look elsewhere. Like something, it requires maybe firmness or clarity or even leadership, and you're not the person that they come to. And that can hurt. And it also can be confusing because you're not incompetent and you're not careless and you're certainly not lacking insight. And you know that. And you probably possess all those qualities that they're looking for. But something about how you're showing up is not carrying the weight that you want it to carry or that you actually possess. And it's not because you're too kind. So by the end of this clip, you're going to understand why being nice can actually backfire at work and what's actually happening underneath it and how to stay warm and open and human without losing your credibility. Okay? Hi, I'm Leezá Steindorf. I'm an international leadership coach and facilitator, and I work with professionals who want to be respected without becoming cold or performative or disconnected from themselves. And if this is happening, there is nothing wrong with you. You've not done anything wrong. It's all too common, I'm going to say. So if you find this content useful, go ahead and subscribe. You'll know when new clips come out. And these conversations build on each other. That's what we're doing here. We're building a community and we're building content with each other. So let's get clear. Kindness is not the problem. It can't be the problem. And neither is being warm, okay? And being considerate is not a problem. The problem is when being nice becomes a way to avoid clarity. Like if we're using it as a way out. And that's where credibility starts to leak. Where people start to doubt you, okay? And it can be super subtle. You soften maybe at different points, or you add too many qualifiers, or you say, oh, maybe this is just me, or I could be wrong, or no worries when actually there is a problem, right? Or you say, whenever you get to it's fine, but you actually have a deadline. Or you say it's fine when it's actually not fine. And none of that is bad, and it might not seem dramatic at the moment you're saying it, right? And it's also become really socially acceptable in a lot of ways. But over time, people begin to experience you as unclear. Definitely pleasant and thoughtful, but maybe not reliable for that direction, yeah? And in professional settings, that really matters because people appreciate kindness, but they rely on clarity and on firmness. And that's the distinction. So the first question I want to pose is, why does being nice start to feel ineffective? And the reason is because you're filtering too much, right? You're not only considering the other person, you're actually managing how they might feel about what you say. Like you're not only doing your own work, you're doing work for them. You're trying to prevent their discomfort. And you're also trying to avoid being seen as harsh or demanding or difficult or selfish or too much, which is what I've often heard, or not collaborative, or maybe even not kind. And I'm going to add in here that depending on your gender and your race or your age, that also comes into it, right? Or your hierarchy if you're new in an organization. So all of these factors play a role into how nice we feel we have to be or how much nice is expected of us. So by the time your real message actually comes out, it's super diluted. And the actual point that you want to make is buried under all of that padding. And people can't respond cleanly to what's not been communicated cleanly. Like they have to try and filter, dig through all of that to find out what is the thing that this person is saying, right? And that's not a character flaw. It's just training. It's patterning. And usually that pattern comes from somewhere. Yeah? Maybe you learned that being liked kept you safe, or saying yes kept you in a relationship, or that disagreeing or having an opinion was dangerous, or that being direct created conflict. There's all kinds of reasons. Maybe you were rewarded for being easy, or or taught that good people don't make other people uncomfortable and all these things, right? And you have maybe, as I have watched people misuse power and decide, I am not going to be like that. And all of that makes total sense. But the answer is not to become unclear, right? The answer is to actually become clean. And I speak about this often. What I mean by clean is eliminating the noise, becoming streamlined, because directness and harshness are not the same thing. Clarity does not mean cruelty at all, especially when you remove judgment. So you can be firm without being aggressive. So if your body has collapsed into one of those categories, and every time that you need to be clear, it may feel like you're doing something wrong. So then you don't do that. You soften and soften again and, become softer yet again. And this is not just a female thing at all. This has nothing to do, this is unilateral. Folks do this. So until you soften to the extent that the truth, what you really see or feel or want to bring, is barely discernible. Okay? And in my work, I speak often about fact versus filter, that there are things that happen, but it's the meaning that we give to them that actually either creates our strength or weakens our stance. So let's separate those out. For example, fact, you value being considerate. That is a truth for you. But the meaning could be, if I'm direct, I'm being unkind. Fact, someone doesn't like what you say. They say, I don't like that. And the meaning you may give that is, I have damaged the relationship. Fact may be, you need to set a boundary, and meaning is, I'm being difficult. Or you need to correct something, and you're making it believe that you're being too critical of that person. So you see how you distort something that's true for you, and then you make it mean something. And that's not bad, and it's valid, but it's not useful. Usually those meanings turn that clarity into, oh my gosh, this is a dangerous situation. And once clarity feels dangerous, you're not going to go there. You're going to replace it with niceness and do anything you can to not be that. But niceness cannot do the job of clarity. That's not what niceness is for. And niceness isn't even, I'm going to say it has a bad rap. Kindness. Kindness is a beautiful human value, and we can be clear and kind. Okay? So, being nice may smooth out a moment, but clarity can guide a relationship. It can bring important content to the table. And niceness may reduce immediate discomfort, but long term, clarity is going to prevent confusion. So that niceness may get you liked, but when you're clear, people are going to be able to rely on you. And that doesn't mean you've become cold, as I said. You can be kind and you can be clear. I'm not interested in coldness. That doesn't get anybody anywhere. As we see in this world, we need a whole lot more kindness, but with a clarity and with values that we stand for. So coldness does not equate leadership, and harshness does not equate authority. But constant softening also does not get us where we need to go. So how do we reframe it? What if being respected does not require you to become less warm or less heart-centered? What if being respected requires you to stop using warmth to cover over the truth? And that's the shift. You can be warm and clear. You can be kind and direct. When you remove judgment, when you retain care for someone, you can be clear and direct. You can care and say, this doesn't work. And you can be relational and say, I need this by Friday. And still be fully human by saying, I see that differently. So the problem's not being warm or kind, it's actually hiding behind that or using it as a pretense to not stand in your own truth. And that's where credibility gets damaged. Because when people can't tell where you stand, they literally can't fully trust your leadership or your word for that matter. They may like your energy and enjoy being in your presence, but when that pressure rises, people are actually looking for clarity. And they look for someone who can name what's true so they can rely on that. And someone who can hold a line, even in difficult situations, without getting aggressive. Who can say the necessary thing without turning into a personal attack. When you speak about the facts and you stick to the actions, the behaviors, and you do not disparage the person, it's very powerful and useful. And that builds credibility. So, what opens up when you stop over-filtering? Trust. So you really replace I'm going to say shallow likability with real trustworthiness. Because people begin to know that when you say yes, it means yes. And when you say no, it means no. Doesn't mean that you're rigid. You'll still talk to people, but you're clear about where you stand in that moment. So your concern is real, your support is real, the deadline is real, your feedback is real. Like, you're reliable. They don't have to decode you. They don't have to wonder whether, oh, no worries means actually this is really an issue, but you're not doing your job. Like, they don't have to try and decipher that. Yeah? They don't have to guess whether you're aligned with what you're sharing with them. It's cleaner for everybody, especially for yourself, right? So, and some people will absolutely prefer the softer, likable version of you. Absolutely. And especially if that version of you made things easier for them. But that doesn't mean that the softer version was more loving. It may have been more convenient, but there's a difference, between being loving and kind and making things convenient for people. So what do? First thing, you say what needs to be said. Not everything you could say, not the whole emotional story and your big opinion and all that. Just a clean, clear truth. This timeline does not work. I need the draft by Thursday. I don't agree with that direction. Or I'm concerned we're missing the real issue here. This needs to be addressed. Simple. You don't have to make it complex. It's better for everybody. Second, keep the warmth, but drop all that padding, right? I said clean. Warmth comes through your tone. When you start to pad things, it gets all fluffy and complicated, right? You can say, I appreciate the effort here, and this still needs to be revised. And it's warm, and it's clear. You don't have to go into a whole preface of how fantastic the person is and how much you apologize for bringing this up at all. That's not necessary, okay? Third, do not dilute your message to make it easier for another person to receive it. And this is not an easy one, but it really does matter, because you can make your message respectful. You can make it in such a way that you have the highest chance of someone receiving it, but you can't always make it comfortable. And you have no control over how someone receives. So if you try and remove all the discomfort, you'll usually remove the clarity also. Fourth, hold your position gently without tightening. And that's a practice. You don't have to gird yourself to say something. You say the thing, they respond, you stay open as best you can, you don't attack, hear what they say, you don't collapse or get lost, you don't immediately take it back because there's tension, you stand in what you said. And that's knowing your internal authority. We've spoken about that before, right? So it's not being forceful, it's being present. And now there's a deeper piece of knowing yourself here. And many people who are nice at work are not actually choosing kindness freely, right? They're managing that they belong. And it's really a tenuous situation, because if they know they're just being nice and they feel that they belong that way, somewhere inside themselves, they know that if I'm not being nice, maybe I don't belong. So that kind of authenticity really gives you the security that I'm being me, I'm being kind, I'm being clear, and I do belong, okay? So they're not trying to keep approval or to try and stay safe, but they're trying to avoid being misunderstood. That's when we're being clean and clear. We want to eliminate misunderstandings as best as we can. So the work is not to become less kind. It's to become more honest and to let kindness come from from a choice of how we're being rather than fear. Because kindness is strength. When we come from that place of fear, we're hiding. But when we come from strength, we can be kind and we can be clear. And that's the difference. And people feel it. So here's an anchor for you if you'd like to have it. People may appreciate your niceness, but it's your kindness that makes a difference, and it's your clarity that they can rely on. So you don't have to give up your warmth at all. You do not have to stop being yourself, just the opposite. You get to be fully yourself, and you get to bring yourself forward in a clean and a clear way. Just stop disappearing behind niceness. So if that helped in some way, leave a comment. I'd love to hear how this impacts you, what your thoughts are. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you know when new clips come, and share it with someone who's also maybe tired of being liked but not really respected for who they are and what they bring to the table. In the next clip, we're going to look at how all of this connects back to self-trust and why your professional credibility actually begins with the way you stand inside yourself. Okay? Look forward to seeing you. Thanks for being here. Until next time, be well.